Ivy and Gecko acknowledges the traditional owners of country throughout Australia, and we pay our respects to elders past, present and future. Welcome to Hearts and Minds. Our podcast episodes feature conversations with highly accomplished mining executives and board directors. We'll explore critical themes relating to leadership impact, staff engagement and culture development. So tune in, enjoy the conversations and prepare to be inspired. I'm Alana Bray-White, the Managing Director of Ivy and Gecko, and this is our podcast, Hearts and Minds.
Every community is different. Every language group is different. Every country is different. And every nation is different. Australia is built of many different language groups, many different family groups, many different countries and many different nations. I suppose the best way is to look at Europe. They're all independent from each other. Similar languages, yes. Similar currencies, similar religions, similar ways of interacting, but uniquely different.
Yes.
And I think that is, when you look at Australia, you look at the many hundreds of different language groups we have, they are very, very different. And it's really easy to go to one community with the lessons you learnt from somewhere else and think that will work and fail quickly. So it's about understanding that every community is different, and within every community, they are different as well. Time is very different in an Aboriginal mindset than a Western working world.
Our guest today is Ben Denison, a proud First Nations man who specialises in managing heritage, native title, land access and community relations within the mining industry. Ben is a member of the management team of ASX-listed Gold Road Resources. In his role, he leads engagement with the traditional owners of the regional communities, bringing parties together through employment and contracting opportunities and cultural awareness workshops. Prior to joining Gold Road, Ben held related positions with Fortescue Metals Group and the water corporations of Western Australia, South Australia and New South Wales. In this episode, we listen to Ben's insights about the process of earning trust and the role of elders in leading Aboriginal communities. We note some important lessons here for mining corporations, and we discuss the outcomes of the Voice Referendum, the state of reconciliation, and we learn about the concept of time as understood by the indigenous Australians. Our conversation with Ben is heartfelt and revealing. I hope you enjoy it.
Righto. Ben, thanks for joining us on Hearts and Minds.
Thank you.
I've been really looking forward to this conversation because, A, I know you're the best in the business of what you do.
Thank you.
But also, I reckon you'd know considerably more than most of our mining industry guests when it comes to your knowledge of the process of building social as well as business partnerships with Indigenous Australians and traditional owners. But we'll get to that shortly. But before we do, let's learn a little bit about you and your background.
Yep.
What can you tell us about your early years? Where did you grow up? What was it like? And tell us something about your family heritage.
Yeah, so thanks for having me and thanks for that compliment. I wouldn't say I'm the best, but I give it a red hot crack every time I'm out there doing work. I grew up in a small country town in central Victoria, a town called Broadford. Only really famous things from Broadford is Allen's Lollies, they're from there, and
they're good.
They had Barry Hall. So Barry Hall's younger brother, David, was one of my brother's good friends.
Is he still boxing, Barry Hall?
Look, I believe so. I don't know. I know he was back in the day, but he's moved to Sydney, I believe. So, so grew up small country town, a few thousand people. Sort of the foothills of high country Victoria. Not much to really say. Just a country kid who liked riding my push bike after school, getting into trouble, and
Did you enjoy school, or was it a chore?
I didn't. I enjoyed being at school, but I didn't enjoy the school work. It wasn't till later in my academic education that I found what I really liked doing and really got passionate into that. But
And what about your immediate family? Did you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I got a brother and a sister. Sort of my sister's got a well-accomplished business now in Central Victoria, and mum as well. Unfortunately, lost my father when I was 16 in a car accident. So it was just the three of us growing up.
Yeah, at times like that, I guess, Ben, you really do need extended family around you and support. It must have been very difficult at the age of 16 to cope with the loss of a parent. Apart from your immediate family, who were your key influences in those earlier years?
That's an interesting one. I think I joined the CFA, which is the Country Fire Authority, as a volunteer.
Okay.
Really early on, 16, 17. Had some family friends who were really involved and became really a second family. You know, their daughter, Lisa, was my age at school, and she was often at our house, and I was often at their house all the time. And it was just like a second family, and a lot of friends, you know, just became second families, and you're always, if you weren't home, you knew where you were.
Yeah. Volunteer community groups are so important, particularly, of course, in regional areas.
Yeah, and we had the local football club, and you know, small country towns. It was everybody knew everybody. Everyone got around everybody.
You're a keen footballer in your day?
I was. I wouldn't say I was any good, but I was definitely keen.
Yeah. We go to the same gym, and we have a mutual trainer who said I should ask you this question, Ben. Why do you remain loyal to the Sydney Swans when they continue to choke in big games and disappoint their members?
I don't think they disappoint their members. We're always there. They show up, so I show up.
Time to bring Plugger back and give you a bit of a momentum into the finals next year?
Look, I enjoy going to grand final day and you know, listening to Mike Brady sing Up There Kazali. So we've been there, you know, being a South Melbourne supporter, then a Swan supporter living in WA.
Yeah,
there's still the Eagles rivalry. So I remember 05 well, and I remember crying in 06 at the end.
I'm just jealous because of the recent history and performance of the Eagles, but we'll get there. When you're not attending Swan games, what do you do to switch off? How do you relax?
I do lots of normal things that normal people do. I enjoy my red wine and my whiskey, so I enjoy socialising with friends. If I'm not at home, I'm out and about. I try and get to the gym as much as I can. Obviously, work gets in the way. Just try and live a normal life of just being out there and having a good time.
Yeah, good on you. Ben, I know you've completed a qualification in Natural and Cultural Resource Management from Deakin University.
Yep.
What did you learn from that course, and did it adequately prepare you for the type of work you do now?
I learned it was more the relationships that I built when I was there, and just some of the challenges that we have across different cultures are the same.
Yeah.
It was more about the relationship building than anything else. But it was, while I didn't really enjoy high school, you know, when I did the course, I really loved the course, and it sparked my interest. And I head down was in books. I was out and about asking the right questions, and it just, you know, it's now given me the opportunity to have a seat at the table, I suppose.
You're an Indigenous Australian. Do you identify with a particular mob? What's your sort of background in terms of First Nations people?
Yeah, so I'm a Koori fella from southwest Victoria. Unfortunately, my father was taken part of the stolen generation, and there's been a long family process of understanding where his family were from and how that all fits in. So, southwest Victoria, Koori fella.
Gee. Let's talk a bit about leadership effectiveness. In building your working relationships with traditional owners, what are the personal qualities that are valued by Indigenous people? Are they different from the qualities valued by non-Indigenous Australians?
I think the values are the same. You know, building relationships. It's about building meaningful relationships, and I think that word building, you know, they don't just happen. You have to build them over time.
Yeah. And
so those qualities of trust and understanding. As an Aboriginal Australian, you know, we have a shared story. You know, every person I talk to as an Aboriginal Australian has had some form of disadvantage in their life. So we're able to build that trust straight away. And I do that. One of the things I like to do really early on is identify who I am with communities. You know, I'm Ben, I'm a proud proud Koori fellow from Southwest Victoria, and and thank them for allowing me to work on their country. And I think it's that building the respect and the relationship really early on, and being genuine, and that's no different from any relationship. I think
Yeah, I'm sure your background gives you added credibility when you're out in the field engaging with traditional owners. And frankly, I'm surprised there aren't more Indigenous people in the type of role that you perform in the mining industry.
Well, I wish there was sometimes, but it's a really hard discipline to be in as an Aboriginal person. You can't switch off being an Aboriginal person. So, while it may be a decision that's made in the workplace, that decision, comes with you elsewhere. So it's not surprising, but I understand we need more. We need more Aboriginal people in leadership roles across the mining sector, because ultimately we are working on the lands of the first Australians, and they need to have their voices heard.
Yeah, dead right. And it also may be an advantage, I suspect, in the type of work that you do, that you're not from a technical background, you're not a mining engineer or a geo, you're not in the weeds when it comes to mining operations. And I suspect that may be to some advantage, do you think, when you're building relationships with Indigenous people?
I think so, because your agenda is slightly different. You're going in there to build those relationships, to have the yarn, have the conversation, to just be out there, to be honest and genuine. You're not coming in there with a different mindset. I work with a lot of geos who talk a lot of technical stuff, and for me it's technical stuff. I'll let them work in their space, and I work in mine. So.
Yeah. We talk a lot about leaders in business. I love the concept of the elder in Aboriginal language. Talk to us, Ben, about the status and the responsibilities of elders in First Nations culture. What place and role do they play?
They're everything. They have the utmost authority in our communities, and earn and deserve that respect. They're our knowledge holders. They're our decision makers. They keep us safe when we're out there. We don't, sit there and talk about, elders from, one area. They're our elders. So if I'm working on someone's country, I'm fully respectful of their elders as well as they are of my elders. So, as I said, they're everything. They're our knowledge holders. They're our decision makers. They pass on the knowledge to us when it's appropriate. They keep us safe when we're out doing our work. They advocate for us, and I think can be a bit of a challenge as well when you're doing some of the survey work, because a lot of the surveys are done by your younger community members, where the ultimate decision lies with the elders. So when you're out there in a world of doing heritage survey, that information needs to come back into whatever the community governance may be, whether it's the circle of elders, whether it's a board meeting, but ultimately they're our most respected members in our communities.
And the tradition of oral storytelling in Aboriginal communities, is that still alive and well? Do the elders, are they the keepers of the storytelling, or is that disseminated throughout the communities?
No, they're the keepers, and they will determine when it's appropriate to pass that knowledge and those stories on. Not everybody knows everything, and it's for the elders to pass that knowledge on to certain people at certain times, and when they're ready to know that. And that's again that's back to that respect piece. It's not for us to ask for that. It's for us to be given that. A story that was a value that I live by, that was passed down to me, was you have 2 ears and 2 eyes and 1 mouth. So it's about twice as much looking and listening.
Use them in that proportion.
Yep.
A lot of people forget, don't they, that prior to colonisation, Australia had many different nations.
Yep.
is it the case that different nations have different values-based cultures, Ben, or today is there pretty much one culture?
Really, really great question, because I've often had that conversation before with a lot of people, because every community is different, every language group is different, every country is different, and every nation is different. Australia is built of many different language groups, many different family groups, many different countries, and many different nations. I suppose the best way is to look at Europe.
Yes.
They're all independent from each other. Similar languages, yes. Similar currencies, similar religions, similar ways of interacting, but uniquely different.
Yes.
And I think that is, when you look at Australia, you look at the many hundreds of different language groups we have, they are very, very different. And it's really easy to go to one community with the lessons you learnt from somewhere else and think that will work, and fail quickly. So it's about understanding that every community is different, and within every community they are different as well. So
So important to do our utmost to preserve the languages and the cultures, isn't it? I'd hate to think that generations from now, there'll be no one left who can identify with particular languages. They'll be extinct, for want of a better word.
Yeah, and that's one of the saddest things that's happening at the moment is the loss of our elders and our knowledge holders. We see it too often. So we really, it's for us to make sure that knowledge is kept alive and passed on. It's 60,000 years here before colonisation, and I'd like to think that it outlives you and I for a long time.
Indeed. Ben, you're currently the Manager Heritage, Land Access and Community for Gold Road Resources. For someone in your position, what are your KPIs? In other words, what should success look like if you're doing your job well?
Well, I think that the biggest KPI that I've had throughout my whole career is that whatever we're doing is not on the front page of a major paper.
Okay.
And I think, we're the silent achievers. We're setting, process and procedures and building relationships that allow us to go in and do our activities. So the KPIs we have around building relationships, which allows us to unlock areas of land to do exploration work in. Also, one of the big things is about reconciliation and building that reconciliation piece within the business and things like that. But I think the biggest KPIs that I have is about we're one company, we're an exploration company, we're out there to ultimately find the next gold mine through our activities, and it's my role as part of the big machine to allow the geos and operations to go in and do the right thing.
It could be analogous, your type of role, to that of an umpire in a footy game. Hopefully you keep the flow of the game going, but you're not noticed particularly because you're, smoothly the conduit to different players.
Yep.
And you're the keeper of the rules.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. As I said, you'll know about what we do if it goes bad, and it doesn't go bad for us. So we it's out there just building relationships, allowing the rest of the business to get on and do the great things they can do. Yeah.
You're a team leader, so you've got responsibility for leading a group of staff. Do you think the qualities of leadership are largely inherited, or do you think they are developed over time?
I think it's a combination of both, honestly. Some of the best people I've ever worked with who have gone on to leadership roles didn't want to be leaders. They just wanted to get out there and do a good job. I think if you're passionate about what you do, you're naturally a leader. Whether that's being an administrative assistant through to a mining engineer, through to a geologist, through to an actual general manager. I think if you're passionate about what you do, you're naturally going to lead by example and to start to influence people around you, to bring them on the journey. I think the art of managing people is something that we learn, but I think leadership is it's in everybody. Everybody's a leader.
Yeah, look, you raise a very good point, and I often think that, we should be managing processes and systems and physical assets, but we really need to inspire and empower people, and that's what leadership's about. Yep. And you're right, if you show a level of enthusiasm, then that is contagious, and it will inspire, hopefully, other people to model the appropriate behaviours that you're looking for within your business. But it is amazing, isn't it, what people can accomplish together if they don't care who gets the credit. If you are all pulling in the same direction, it can be a very rewarding place to work. But not everybody, of course, who's in a position of authority or power finds that easy to do. They like to steal the limelight, and they're not particularly good at showing qualities like humility and vulnerability in leadership. How important do you think those qualities are when you're building a team of people?
I think humility and then vulnerability are huge with building teams.
Yeah.
I think when you have egos involved, you start to create like a pseudo class war, or your goals are different to achieve things. As soon as you break those down, everybody's in it together. The goal's the same, and you're working towards achieving that. Yes, people have different roles to play in that, and they may look for self-fulfillment to inspire them daily. But I think as a leader, it's about us to identify what drives people. What is it that makes them be successful? Is it they want to see an outcome that they can see, or they want to see an outcome that's going to cause change? So
yeah, that's a good point. And I often think that people aren't really prepared to give you their hearts and minds and become truly engaged in a piece of work unless they know that their leader genuinely cares about their welfare and about developing their skills and realising more of their potential. If you can reach that level of leadership, then people become engaged, they start to apply discretionary effort, and when that happens at a critical mass, great things can happen.
And I think it's also, and forget the old cliche, but very big advocate. I wouldn't ask somebody to do something that I wouldn't do myself or have done myself.
Yeah.
And one of the things that about being a leader is stepping back and giving those fun tasks, I suppose, to other people to do. Just because you're the person who makes the decisions, you don't get to do those things anymore. But I think back to a number of times where I've worked with teams to achieve really great outcomes, and I've been on the tools with them, and done that, and they know that if they can't do it, or there's something that's preventing it, I'll get in there and help them and do it. And quite often I'll pick up the not fun task, not the task that is what we all want to do, just to allow others to go off and do it. So I think that builds that trust, and when you ask someone to work with you, they know that you've got their back. Yeah,
that's right. I think there's a lot of ignorance in the community about what it takes to engage Indigenous Australians. If there's one thing, Ben, that you wished non-Indigenous Australians would better understand about First Nations people, what would it be?
Only one. The list is long. I think it's the concept of time. I know that's Aboriginal people and our culture has been here for a very long time. It's going to be here for a lot longer than you and I have passed. And the decisions that are made need to acknowledge the past, the present, and the future. And it's that understanding of time. You need to build a relationship early, and it takes months. It can take years, and you need to that concept of time.
Yes,
is I think one of the biggest things to understand, because then it unpacks everything else.
Yeah.
But understanding the concept of time and knowing that every Aboriginal person is different. Yes, we all identify as an Aboriginal Australian, but we're all different. My brother's very different to me. My cousins are very different to me. Neighbouring communities are very different to me. But I think those two, if we can sort of accept that the time is very different in an Aboriginal mindset than a Western working world.
That's a terrific insight. I've honestly never thought of it in those terms, but you're absolutely right. When you think of, European-based history in Australia, it's just a glimpse of time, isn't it, compared to Indigenous people who've been here, for such a long time. On the broader question of reconciliation, it seems to me that Australia is progressing very, very slowly, and it's a very arduous, tortuous path towards reconciliation. What's your assessment, Ben, of the current state of reconciliation between First Nations people and non-Indigenous Australians?
I think it's a long, long, long road that we've got to go down. But we are making some headway. It was only, I think yesterday I was filling out a form for Australia Post to send the document to Sydney, and it says on there traditional name, if known. And I think I thought to myself, wow, where did that come from? We're seeing that. We're seeing more and more of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures being on display across Australia. And it's not just the welcome to countries that we see at football games or before meetings. It's everything. I think, though, we have to address the elephant in the room, and that the referendum or the vote last year didn't go the way that a lot of people wanted it to go, and that it hasn't slowed us. It's just made us more determined and more passionate to achieve greatness. And we stand here today. I stand here today on the shoulders of giants before me, and I know that my family will do the same moving forward. And the one thing that we know about Aboriginal people is we never give up. We're still here, we're still proud, we're still strong. Oldest living culture on the planet, and
absolutely,
we're going the right way.
And now we take a short break to acknowledge our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by Halo Civil Engineering. Halo is a multidiscipline civil contractor that specialises in the delivery of complex civil projects across defence, infrastructure, energy and resources. A West Australian company committed to delivering dynamic solutions with a focus on zero harm, while having a positive impact on their industry, clients and the people they serve. For more information, search for Halo Civil Engineering on socials or visit halocivil.com. If you'd like to inquire about sponsoring an episode of Hearts and Minds, please reach out to us on LinkedIn or via email info@ivyandgecko.com.au. Ivy and Gecko is a leading Australian talent and organisational consulting firm. We specialise in providing executive search and board consulting services to ASX small and mid-tier explorers, developers and producers in the gold and critical minerals industries. As the only executive search and leadership consulting firm to be admitted membership of the Minerals Council of Australia, Ivy and Gecko is uniquely resourced to advocate for the interests of our exploration, project development and mining clients.
At a personal level, I too was very disappointed with the outcome of the referendum last year, and after it, and it was a kick in the guts to many people, and I thought, gee, there's a silence. We really do need leadership to come to the fore now. We need to refine our voices and take this issue on and progress and advance it. I just hope that, with that blow to such a significant part of our community, we will continue to advance.
I hope so, but I think it has just made us stronger.
You mentioned trust quite a few times in our conversation so far, and I'm a big believer that trust really is the foundation of advancement and progression in all of its forms. I recall Charlie Munger, who was the long-time business partner to Warren Buffett. So Charlie was the vice president of Berkshire Hathaway. He died at the age of 99 last year, and I remember his final interview, he was asked the question, during the course of your 70-year business career, what's the most important thing you've learned? And his reply was that trust is the most powerful economic force on earth. And to me, that just reinforced the idea that trust is the basis of progress. Without trust between human beings, progress will be somewhat insincere and slower. We really have to work on genuine trust between people. In terms of cultural development, let's look at the business context. Who's responsible for developing the culture of a business, including a mining business? Is it something that the board should control? Is it the executive leadership team, or does it go beyond that?
I think that's a really great question, because it comes up quite a lot when you're doing internal cultural surveys in organisations. It's who's responsible for building culture.
Yeah.
I think everybody's responsible at some level.
Yeah.
And I think where it's up to each of us to drive good cultures and good values. Obviously, the more senior levels of organisations are setting the directions of where we are headed and things like that. But building good culture is you shouldn't wait for somebody to say we've changed the organisation's values or we're doing a new culture survey. It's on all of us at every level to go to work and to have a good time, to be empowered with what we do.
Yeah.
We're all employed as experts in what we do when we're there, and let's do it the best of our ability. But I think culture, it's for everybody to drive.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if you look at some of the exemplary companies, they have a purpose that is bigger than profit. It's bigger than personal achievement. It's more of a broader community-focused purpose. And a culture, of course, is based on values, and that doesn't mean that everyone in the business needs to have the same values, but it does mean that there needs to be a shared set of values that people have in common, whatever those values might be. If we look more broadly, Ben, at industry opportunities, challenges, and from the perspective of the work that you do, what are some of the biggest challenges facing the mining industry today?
You probably had everybody say the war on talent, because there's not, there's a short supply of really good operators. I think it's, I think it's the changing nature of society, and I know that's a little bit wishy-washy, but there's, everything is now moving towards that. Greater social awareness, whether that's in the environment space, whether that's in the heritage space, native title, land access, whether that's in any diversity space. I think it's just the challenge we face is that the community expectations on how we operate is changing rapidly, and we need to change for that. And I think that is comes back to the war on talent. How do we get the right people in? How do we work differently to achieve outcomes for shareholders? Just the expectations of society have changed.
Yeah, they certainly have. And as a recruiter over many years, I've seen that trend emerging. It's not uncommon now for me to be challenged to provide evidence of a firm's commitment to environment or social harmonies with the partners that are on the land where they operate. 20 years ago, that wouldn't have been a topic of conversation. And I think to some extent, and I'm a very strong advocate of the value of mining, provided, of course, it's done safely and sustainably. Mining is critical to our way of life. But I do think some mining companies are a bit behind the ball when it comes to their marketing of their brand and the image of mining. Certain things have happened in recent years. We don't need to go into details, but where there has been a trust deficit that has built because certain companies, certain individuals have done the wrong thing. And I think particularly with younger people entering the mining industry, that is a source of some frustration and disappointment. So I do think the mining still has a bit of an image problem.
Yep.
Do you have a point of view on that?
I would agree. Having worked in the public sector for a long time, and coming from a place of social science.
Yep.
The mining sector was always originally seen as the enemy.
Yeah.
Going out there doing the wrong thing. Having now worked in the sector for a little bit of time, once you're behind that wall, you see there's not that, and it's we have the opportunity to while we're here to make that change for others. But I think that community expectation of mining has changed, and I think it's on us to make sure that we are selling the good things we are doing. Like, we do some amazing things out there. I talked before about doing all the right things and not being on the front page of the West Australian.
Yep.
We need to sell the reasons why we are not there, because that's the good news story. They're working with traditional owners to find the really positive outcome to mine a resource or to explore country. Is a fantastic news story or fantastic piece that we need to share. That will hopefully demonstrate to individuals that we do the right thing. We spend more time out there sitting around the campfire, walking country, learning about country, so I can come back into the workplace to advocate for that, to make sure that we are doing the right thing. And I think we are largely doing the right thing.
Great. And look, we're certainly heading in the right direction. If you pick up a mining company annual report or sustainability report these days, you'll find a very significant proportion of the pages are dedicated to talking about heritage and partnerships with traditional owners and the environment. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that wouldn't have been part of the content of an annual report. In my travels visiting mining companies as a consultant, I see very few Aboriginal people, certainly in the corporate offices of mining companies. I'd love to see a lot more. You do see some Indigenous people on the boards of companies, but at the executive levels, very, very few. Is there anything in particular that we should be doing and need to do to attract and engage more Indigenous people into the corporate offices of mining companies?
I don't think that's just an issue with mining. I think that's a cross.
Yeah, that's true.
Cross employment. I think it's a bigger social conversation to have there regarding some of the injustices that have occurred over the last generation or so around access to education and access into jobs and that back to that trust piece. I think it's going to take time. We don't have, I was certainly the first person in my family to graduate high school and then go off to university, and that's not uncommon for a lot of people. I'm only 40 to have done that. So I think it's going to take its time, but I think we're doing the right thing. We're creating the pathways through education. We're creating the right pathways through entry programs into organisations. But unfortunately, the talent is just not there. There's, and we need to build that talent, and that's what both governments, private and government, not for profits, governments and other sectors are doing.
Yeah, it's a work in progress for sure. It's your turn, Ben. Do you have a question for me before we head into the rapid fire questions?
No, not really. I think every question I had for you was about some of the changes that you've seen over your journey, and I think you've answered some of those as well. But what do you see as the biggest, I suppose, threat to the resource industry over the short and long term?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting and a good question, and like you, I'm not a technically trained person in mining. I'm not an engineer or a metallurgist or a geo. I'm very much a human resources person, but finding individuals who are genuinely aligned to the cultural workplace has become increasingly an important part of my job. Finding people who have the right qualifications and the right experience, that's relatively easy to do, particularly, with the technology and the databases available to us. We can match people up to jobs fairly quickly. What is much more challenging is to identify a person who's got those qualifications and experiences, but who is aligned to the values-based culture of a particular business that you're recruiting for. People join companies, they leave bosses, is a rule of thumb. So we need to work very closely with the hiring manager, who very often is a technically trained person and whose people skills may not be optimal in terms of leading and engaging and building teams of people. We need to understand the drivers of that person and, to some extent, over time, help the company to educate and develop the skills of that team leader to become more effective in extracting the very best from his or her people. So I see my job really, Ben, as going, from a very narrowly focused recruitment person into a more broader consultant with companies. And it's the cultural fit aspect that is, for me, particularly interesting and challenging and is what keeps me in the business.
Yep.
Okay, rapid fire questions. Are you ready, Ben?
I am.
When you think about people who've shown great leadership, whether it be in business or sport or the creative arts, who do you first think of and why?
I think of people who are relatable and show up and who are present. Some of the leaders that I've looked up to or aspired to have been people who I didn't know were leaders until someone told me that's the chief executive you've just had a coffee with.
Okay.
So I think just really relatable people who care.
Are you prepared to nominate one?
I probably can. I know you won't mind me saying it, but one of my people I look up to a lot is a former chief fire officer in Victoria, Ewan Waller. I remember the first time I met him as an entry-level staff member of the department was in the kitchen on a Sunday, and here's this gentleman come in, make you a coffee, said good day, and we just hit it off. And the very next day on Monday morning, he's giving the statewide briefing, and I just thought, wow, is a person who commands the respect of the room, but also will have a coffee with you. And we don't catch up as often as we should, but he's someone who I know's I just loved everything he ever.
It sounds like he truly had the quality of humility and was able to contain his ego somewhat for the benefit of the relationship.
Absolutely, and in an industry where you've got to make really quick decisions, his decisions were always made well thought through, and he just was a great leader. And I'll never forget that Sunday. I think I was 21 at the time, and he's a big boss, didn't know who he was, and I just said good day, and we had a coffee. And next day, he's standing there and giving the statewide briefing, which was awe-inspiring.
Hopefully he might hear this podcast and be flattered.
Hopefully I'll reach out to him and let him know.
What's your favourite movie?
It's a really interesting one. Like, you probably had a lot of people come in here and being really sophisticated with their movies. Mine's a Tom Cruise movie, Days of Thunder.
Oh.
And for my 30th birthday, my mum got me 16 laps, at Daytona, hot laps. So that was it was my lifelong dream to trickle.
That was a good movie. His first one, I think, with Nicole Kidman.
It probably was, but it was a movie that I've watched many hundreds of times.
That's a good answer. Wayne Bramwell, who was on this podcast a few weeks ago, said Mad Max 1 was his favourite movie. And I was somewhat surprised at that, but there you go. He assured me it wasn't Mel's acting, it was just the post-apocalyptic Australia scene and the fast cars and the warriors that really got him hooked. What about your favourite book, Ben?
I don't think I've ever read a book cover to cover outside of high school, a storybook, but I do love reading history books and nature books and things like that. So you'll quite often find my head buried down in a scientific textbook, such about the Australian wildlife, or history books, chapters about the Russian Revolution and things like that.
Do you think you'll write your own book one day about your work, about heritage and Indigenous culture?
I don't think it'd be don't think anyone would read it. So
I would.
no, but thank you. I should say your book is the best book I've read. But
You're kind.
but for me, reading is about just finding the information.
Yeah.
In things. So
Yeah. What's one thing you do at the start of every day that helps you get the most out of your day?
I just listen to music on the way to work.
Yeah.
Just relaxes me.
Pumps you up?
Pumps me up.
Yeah.
I try not to read any emails until I get into the office.
Yeah.
And then I try to have a coffee with colleagues to discuss the day.
What's your favourite band at the present time to listen to?
Favourite band at the present time to listen to? I love music. My dad was in a band, so surrounded by music.
Wow.
But look, my all-time favourite band is U2, but you'll find anything indie on my playlist, maybe Arcade Fire is right up there. But I do love 90s synth, and I bought tickets yesterday to go see New Order. I'm off to see Oasis next year, so
Wow.
anything that's got a story, some good music, I listen to.
Some good bands there. I love U2 and the Joshua Tree, one of my favourite albums.
Yep.
What have you changed your mind about recently?
What have I changed? That's a really great question. Probably, I actually don't know what I've overtly changed my mind about recently. I think I've become more accepting of that. Everybody is out. It might be very Zen like, but everybody means well. It's really easy when you're younger to be critical and be critical of others and to not like decisions. But I think the older I've got, the more accepting of that there's two sides to this story, and that we only hear half the information. So let's not jump to assumptions too early.
Well, that's a great quality to have, and it aligns somewhat, I think, with empathy and tolerating alternative points of view and listening, which may be the answer to the next question. What's one personal quality you have that you're very grateful you have?
I think that empathy piece and seeing the bigger picture. I think it's in the line of work that I do, I have to be very understanding of what the big picture is.
Yeah.
And very empathetic.
Yeah, great. What activity really bores you?
I should say going to the gym with our mutual trainer.
Charming. He'll be listening to this.
He will. Activity that really bores me, probably cleaning cutlery. To be honest, it's just that it's got to be done.
But aren't you satisfied with the end result?
Look, I really love sweeping and mopping. One of my first ever jobs was a seasonal firefighter, and we used to rake fire breaks, and you would see your work when you'd rake a fire break, and so for me, I find it really therapeutic to sweep and to mop because you can see your results. So I know it's weird, but
look, I don't think it is. I get it. I like ironing clothes. I get a great sense of satisfaction to see perfectly ironed clothes hanging up on the doorknob.
I'll leave you with the ironing and I'll do the sweeping.
What activity really excites you, Ben?
I think in my work world, it's going out and doing heritage surveys and talking to traditional owners because it gives me purpose to why I'm doing this, to see that look in someone's eye when they're passing on some knowledge about something. I think is just for all the dark days you get in the office, and we talked before about the kick in the guts with reconciliation with the vote, and all the negative times you have at work when you're out there and you're working with somebody and you're shaking somebody's hand and you've done that walk together. I think that is that was what really excites me. But outside of work, it's look, finding a new hidden gem that no one else has found before, whether that's a bottle of wine to a park bench to a nice bakery item.
Yeah, good on you. Look, I think you're a champion. Thanks for all your good work. We pass each other in the gym on a few occasions, but I've appreciated this opportunity to have a chat with you, learn a bit more about you personally and professionally. Hopefully some of our listeners on the Apple or Spotify platforms will be able to take something from this conversation and apply it to their own journey of developing their leadership skills. So Ben, thanks very much for being on Hearts and Minds.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Hearts and Minds. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave us a rating or share it with a friend. And don't forget to follow us and connect on social media for updates on all of our upcoming guests. I'm Alana Bray-White, and I look forward to you joining us for our next episode.